we've got central nervous systems. Think of the wiring on an aircraft carrier. There's a lot of it,
Yep.
and some of it is incidental, and some of it's pretty key. But MS is an autoimmune disease, and that being the fact that it's like the aircraft carrier started stripping its own wires randomly in different places at different times.
Hi, and welcome to Helping People Perform, the podcast that gives you fascinating insights into those people whose chosen vocation is to help others perform at their best. From consultants to teachers, sports coaches to financial advisors, all of my guests share a passion for getting the most out of individuals, teams, and organisations. Enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Helping People Perform podcast. I'm delighted to be joined today by someone who's had a big impact on my family life and my own life over the past year or a couple of years. Really, it's Dominic Shadbolt from the msguide.com. So welcome to the show, Dom. Great to have you.
Hi, Paul. Thank you. What a flattering introduction.
Well, no, and we'll come into that in terms of the connections that we've had over the years and how that's brought us together. And we'll come into the MS Guide side of it in a little bit as well. But just before we get kicked off on that side, could you tell us a bit about yourself, you know, your background, what got you to where you are today?
I think the polite way that you would describe it is I've had a portfolio career. I have done many different things, and you could say it's a symptom of not knowing what I wanted to do pretty much till now. And I'll be 54 very soon. And I mean, Paul, I was desperate to be in the army when I was 17. I was desperate to be a Marine. I mean, you know, it was just all these kind of things. My eyesight wasn't good enough, etc. Because that was secondary to flying a fighter jet, obviously.
Right.
And, you know, then life has sort of kind of been a series of mostly happy accidents, things that have happened. I've gone from being a ski instructor when I was 18 to working on drilling rigs in the Australian bush to working in complex, high-value pharmaceutical industry, sales and marketing, starting one of the first websites for a UK pharma company, then getting into consulting and IT, and not IT in the techie sense, but consulting around it.
Right.
I've run my own business. I started, ran and sold a profitable business 6 weeks before the financial crash in 2008, which was, everyone goes, oh, that was really clever. It wasn't. It was very, very lucky. And you know, given another 2 months, it would have been worth half, if at all.
Right.
And then I had a sort of major life-changing moment when I decided to get divorced on Boxing Day of 2011, amicably, living with my now ex-wife, we're sorting everything out, and I broke my femur, cycling, which was quite a, believe it or not, life change. It was where life goes left, when you don't expect it. And then I, long story short, went to university from that, because I didn't when I was 18. I knew everything, which was really fortunate. But did a couple degrees, was really kind of almost floundering. And a friend I was talking to, a neurologist in the US called Aaron Boster, I always tease him. I say, he made me do this, but he didn't. You look back and you realize somebody sort of guided you very nicely and expertly in a way. Right. And I started this channel a year and a half ago, sort of advocacy. I was getting into it before then, but, and wow, here we are.
Yeah. Oh, there's some amazing stuff, and I do want to get into the MS Guide side of it, but maybe we can probe on a couple of those experiences back in the past. Tell us a bit more about Australia and working out there. What got you to move abroad? I've done this journey, moving to New Zealand and back again. What prompted you to do it? What experiences did you get out of that?
What prompted me? I was an 18-year-old Canadian who'd finished a ski season. You're sort of chasing the life, it was a thing, you went to Australia. It's a bit like Australians like to come to the UK, I suppose. It was a thing, you go and travel to Australia. So I didn't have enough money for a visa, so you need to show X amount. So I got my grandmother transferred the money into my account. In those days, you didn't have this same sort of transparency that you did now. So I printed out a statement and sent it, gave her the money back, and then took the girl from the Australian consulate in Vancouver out to a Bon Jovi concert, I think it was, just to sort of cement her willingness to want to help me, and got my visa, and was circling Sydney, thinking at 18, oh dear, you've got $200. Don't screw this up.
Right.
And yeah, then I just had a year there, worked in a ski shop, shockingly,
Right.
in Sydney, hitchhiked to Perth, got a job out in the goldfields, and worked on drilling rig, which was for an 18-year-old guy, incredible money, 115 Australian a day. This is 1988, 89, and tax free. And you would work 30 days out. You'd fly back to Perth for 10 days, spend as much of it as you possibly could
Yeah.
on alcohol, mostly it seemed, and then go back and do it again. Then I came back to the UK and thought, ooh, I better go up and get a proper job.
Right. And those proper jobs, you've mentioned the sort of IT side of it. What tell us a bit more about your experiences in that space with pharmaceutical, for instance.
Well, my proper job was drug reps. You kind of looked at it and thought, you get a car, always a bonus when you're a young man,
Yeah.
free car, and selling, well, blag your way around stuff, and you can sort of sell reasonably well. And I didn't have a degree, which was a real hurdle. Everyone wanted a degree, and I said to this guy, this recruitment guy, survey laboratory, said, give me a chance. I said, I'm not dumb, and I promise I'll learn everything. And if I have to, and if I don't, point me to the door.
Right.
And you know what it's like. Once you're in something, you're in something. And a couple of years there, and then I ended up getting involved in the early days of the internet because I had a dial-up modem and could see the internet. Went on holiday to the States, was astonished that they weren't using www anymore. It just said, I remember I tell you, Ford.com.
Right.
And I thought, this is definitely the way forward. Came back and said, do you know what? Our biggest competitor has a one-page website, because it was the domain of the IT department
Right.
back then. It wasn't a communication, marketing, sales tool. It was IT, this World Wide Web thingy, and doorstep the MD when he came out of a meeting with this tangle of wires and this laptop, everything plugged in and modems, and going, look at this, sir, look at this. And it was Glaxo, had a one-page website. I said, we can do better than this. And we compete with them, and we can punch above our weight. And I got a budget, small one, and and the go ahead to do it.
Brilliant.
And that got me into the sort of tech side of things. And I thought, you know what, for the same effort, if I work in the tech industry, I can make more money than I make in the pharmaceutical industry for exactly the same input of effort, from my side. And I'm thinking I will get better remunerated for it, and did that.
Yeah. Oh, and just following those opportunities that come your way, it's I can certainly attest to that during my career as well. You never plan to go out and necessarily go out and make sausages for a living, which is one of the things I did, or find yourself moving from international dairy export into banking. That was another little side angle that I did at one stage as well. So yeah, it's these little opportunities that come your way, and recognizing and having the confidence. And I don't know, let's speak for myself. It wasn't necessarily the confidence; it was more the blind stupidity of going,
That's exactly how I was thinking of it. You just say yes, and then people are going, why did you say yes? You go, I don't know, I'll work all the detail out later. But yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, exactly the way I'd say it. Stupid.
Yeah.
But sort of blindly, just, yeah, why not? Sounds interesting. I'll give it a lash.
Yeah. Yeah. Giving things a go.
What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
There's the door. Don't let it hit you in the arse as you leave. Goodbye. Yeah.
Brilliant.
You tried.
Yeah. And so all of those experiences have taken you to where you are today. Tell us a bit about the MS Guide, and for those of my listeners and viewers, what is MS in that case?
Okay, MS, we've got central nervous systems. Think of the wiring on an aircraft carrier. There's a lot of it,
Yeah.
and some of it is incidental, and some of it's pretty key. But MS is an autoimmune disease, and that being the fact that it's like the aircraft carrier started stripping its own wires randomly in different places at different times. You could get away with it for quite a while, or the thing that launches the airplanes and launches the missiles might touch one day, and you're going to get some funny results. And that's MS. And the thing with MS is the way it's fixed by your body is not by going, we're going to make a proper repair. It's like wrapping a load of electrical tape around it,
Right.
which is never as good as anybody who's done any wiring. They'll clap their hand to their head and going, that's not permanent. But that's MS. Essentially, is your damaged nerves are repaired in a substandard manner, and it's never quite the same again. So it's a progressive degenerative disease as a result. But it's not curable. It's there forever. You've got to get your head around it, whether you like it or not. It's just there. So you have to work out strategies to deal with the fact that things are not the same again.
Yeah, and it's unpredictable. It's as you say, it might have an effect on you one moment, and then it might be another couple of years before anything else happens, or it could be a couple of days. That's the nature of the beast in that case, isn't it?
Well, think of it like a standard distribution curve. You've kind of got your 10% on each end,
Yeah.
your 80% rump of it. So 10% of people will be relatively lightly, if at all, affected in their life. 10% are going to be dreadfully affected really early on. Okay, and down there's going to be that tiny 0.1% that might die.
Right.
It doesn't generally kill you, but the most of us are in this 80% in the middle.
Mm.
Where you are in the 80%, who knows? Nobody can tell you how fast you're going to transit this thing, because it is a one-way trip. That's the thing. You don't just land and you're there. You land and then move on.
Right. And you've been diagnosed with MS. What is it now? Coming up to 30 years, is it?
Thank you for the reminder. Yes, 29. I mean, it was just kind of awkward. When I started doing this, everyone's going, "How long do you have it?" And I'm going, "Oh God, I sort of heard. I settled on 94, and somebody said 93. I went, "I don't care. I've sold 94 to everybody. I'm going to 94." It's kind of irrelevant, I think, at this stage. A year.
Yeah. And I'm guessing the world of the diagnosis and the understanding has moved on a huge amount over those years. How was that experience for you back in those days? And do you see big differences these days?
Yeah. Okay. I'll take it. I'll answer the second part first. Yes. I mean, the differences are almost inexplicable, and partly that's driven by therapies. When I was diagnosed, there were no drugs. The neurologist's job was to say, "I've got some bad news for you. And now I'm going to have to watch you decline." And, who knows what that's going to be like?
Right.
I mean, it really, they had no treatment options.
Mm.
They could treat symptomatic steroids. If you had an attack, they could mitigate it. But the disease was busy working away in the background. These days, there's, I think, 20 different medications, in varying efficacies. The very first ones are far less effective than the sort of current ones. And so there's hope, not of a cure, but of mitigating it. So slowing down the progress, and when you have an attack, reducing the effects of that attack.
Right.
It's still unknown. I heard a neurologist said to me fairly recently, he said, essentially, you've got a 1 in 10 chance of getting away unscathed. And that speaks to that distribution curve, if you think about it.
Yep.
And the rest, though, I was likening it to blindfolding you, Paul, and saying, once a month, you're going to have to walk across the M25 blindfold. Now, don't worry, mate. You might be missed entirely. You might just get clipped a little bit.
Right.
Unlikely to be flattened by a lorry, but you never know because you're blindfolded. Off you go.
Yeah.
And then do it again and again. And, you can say you do it monthly for the rest of your life. So, and you kind of got to get your head around that and think, well, I'm going to do my most to peek out from under the blindfolds.
Right. And what is it that the MS guide does? What are you there for? Who do you help? How do you help them?
Right. So I was saying a neurologist friend, and the discussion was, number one, this disease affects more females than males in a general sense. It's about 2 to 1.
Right.
So 1/3 of males and 2/3 of females. And he was saying, well, there's not really a male voice, mostly because as guys, we don't tend to talk about our feelings. I'm unlikely to come up and go, "Paul, having dreadful erectile dysfunction, what do you think?" And you're just like, this isn't really a guy chat. And, so all these things that happen, guys don't talk about it as much. That was his first point. And the second thing is it's patient to patient. So I'm not mediated by I'm not an employee of a drug company, for example. I'm not an employee of a hospital or a medical team. I am a patient who sits out here. So I do other work with some of these entities on different occasions, but that's not the MS guide.
Right.
The MS guide is patient to patient. So uh, I talk to other patients with MS and different things. Somebody might be having stem cells. Somebody might be the first person to use Kesimpta, which is one of the newer drugs. Or I myself had something called Lemtrada, alemtuzumab. So people want to know, because if you're newly diagnosed, somebody's just gone, by the way, you were going that way with your life. You're not. You're going this way. And I mean, imagine the amount of time you spend in hospital. For me, it was weird because I was a drug rep and I spent my time in hospitals.
Right.
Not for me, but the environment was not at all sort of off-putting. But if you're just suddenly just being chucked into this environment day after day after day, and diagnostic machines and being poked and prodded and fed into tubes and give more blood, and that's got to be quite discombobulating.
Yeah. Yeah, so because I know, our connection. My wife obviously, I don't know what the right term is. Had MS. She's had very successful time of it through the stem cell treatment, and has been posting through through the MS guide and interviewing with you and sharing.
So
a lot
glad
of
you
things.
said that. I thought I don't know if he would like me bringing this up or not. But
No, no, no.
I know how connected you are to this,
Yeah.
and you see it. And I would say, just on that technical thing, she's got MS. She's just got the best controlled MS, because what's causing it nobody really sure. So it's hard to say that it's been put to bed.
Yeah.
She's had the most effective treatment, the longest lasting, I mean, it's for another discussion, but stem cells I would have had stem cells if I could have back in the day.
Yeah. So I mean, going back to the IT example, this is the ultimate in switch you on, switch you off again, switch you off, switch you on again piece, isn't it?
That's what. I've had the drug I've had is like turning me off and on again. The drug your wife's had, or the treatment your wife has had, is like taking out the hard drive, throwing it away, and putting a new one in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
saying, "Let's start again."
Yeah.
We're not even going to format the old one. We're going to start again.
And I know from my experience through that process, and from seeing it through my wife's lens as well, the MS guide has been a place where there is advocacy, there is connection, and there's information that is non-biased. That is, it's the stuff that the NHS, some would argue, should do, but where's the resource? Where's the piece there? This is more about the patient advocacy piece, isn't it? In terms of what to expect, who to connect with, what are the options out there that you don't necessarily get from the treatment side.
Look at it like this: if I don't think doctors necessarily have poor intent. I mean, you don't enter that profession, certainly not to get rich. If you're going to be in the NHS, you might get a reasonable salary, but you're not going to get rich. And if you're very clever, it's very hard work. I look at a doctor as somebody who has studied a bunch of things that I haven't.
Right.
They know a ton of stuff, but they're still a person. For all I know, their cat got run down this morning, and they have got to sit there and talk to me while having had some emotional trauma. They're human. But the thing that troubles me, and everybody knows, or everybody thinks, doctors, police, or whatever, they all look after themselves, they all cover up. But it's that whole sort of institutional ethos that you get. And I think it blinds you sometimes to how, if I'm me, my life and what's going to happen to me and the risks I'm prepared to take and stuff, I don't want you as my doctor to be telling me or guiding me away from stuff because you're concerned about it. We're not talking in the context of MS.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about, I rely on my doctor to make sure. I said, you will tell me if you think that's stupid, I'm going to kill myself. I'm really relying on you for that.
Yeah.
But, it's just, other than that, I want to kind of drive this and say, this is where I'm willing to go in terms of taking risk to prevent future damage and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want you to tell me what you think's an appropriate level of risk for future damage, because you ain't me.
Yeah. No, it's very much that individualized piece. When you are a doctor or anybody dealing with multiple people with similar issues, it's very easy to look beyond the individual and not to the averages or the or what's in front of you in terms of the sheer numbers. But you are dealing with, particularly when it comes to care and long-term care, because that's a lot of what MS is, isn't it? Being a lifetime disease and degenerative as it stands. It's very much a case of you need that to understand how does that impact that individual at that time. Yeah.
Back to the MS guide, though, you said, you've kind of touched on it there, because if you're a doctor, your relationship with your patients is one to many.
Yeah.
It's got to be. If you're a patient, the way you feel, especially when you're newly diagnosed and you're sort of looking to cling to things, it's one to one. If you're my doctor, it's me and Paul.
Yeah.
And if I'm your patient, it's Dominic and Bill and Bob and Jim and Sue and Rachel and and.
Yeah.
Yet I've got to lose, having a patient-to-patient forum is where you can talk to other patients, discuss things, because we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
Just like the doctors have an institutional thing, or, whether you're a doctor or a deep sea diver in the army or in the police or whatever, you've got your institution around you. This is trying to help create a slight hint of institution, because we're all in this together.
Yeah. And you spend a lot of your time out in the world of the research. You talk with the doctors and the advancements in the pharmaceutical side still, don't you? You're out and about, not only talking to patients, but you're balancing that with what's happening from a treatment and options side of it. So what would that typically look like for you? And any conferences coming up or big things that you would look to do?
I have no conferences coming up. I went to a really memorable one I think it was October, November, called ECTRIMS, which was, 8,000 neurologists specializing in MS from around the world all getting together in one place.
Wow.
And do you know what concerns me is the doctors you never see at events. They're the ones who I don't think are at the cutting edge. And if they're not making the effort to do those things, I always worry about how much effort they invest in their patients' outcomes. Because the doctors I know and I bump into and talk with and stuff is in some ways the same old faces. I could rattle off probably 10 off the top of my head. And it's wonderful. And you think you want to be treated by one of those doctors. But it is trying to get, hopefully, the ethos that they have taught me in many ways to get that into patients and sort of say, look, you should be expecting this. If these people can do it, then they're not magic. They just have a mindset which they're looking at things mostly through the patient lens.
Yeah. And what do you then bring? What if people were to go to the MS Guide to look at your YouTube channel, which I know is where you've got a load of resources there? What sort of resources are available to people on there?
Essentially, I would say, I've made something like over 150 videos. I was stunned and I realized okay. And we got things from whether it's sexual dysfunction, cognitive dysfunction, all these things that affect you, and you think, geez, am I the only person who's HSCT? I'm interested in HSCT, stem cells. Well, Rachel, a friend Rachel, she shared her entire journey with the MS Guide. A friend Hamish did the same thing. He went to Mexico. Rachel had it in the UK. Another friend, Natalie, I call people friends. It's not like we're great mates, but Natalie had it in the UK. I'm speaking to other people because everyone has different experiences. And if you're new to the game, to be able to understand from other people that have been through it, essentially, I can tell you about MS till the cows come home. Until you have it, even if you know somebody with it, it's different. I'm sitting here talking to you. My left leg is buzzing at random times. If that happened to you, I think you probably jump out of your skin just because you're so unaccustomed to it. And me, it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not a hero. I'm just used to it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's amazing what you can get used to, isn't it? And
Exactly.
yeah, but I know some of the things that really hit home for me when Rach was sharing her journey, and when I had the pleasure of being on one of your videos as well, sharing things from a partner perspective, and how does it affect the wider family? And that was thanks again for that platform for being able to
That
share.
was really helpful because it's content. You're a
Yeah.
YouTube channel. You're looking for content. You don't want to do the same thing every week. No one will watch.
But some of the things that really stuck home for me was things like people sharing when you go in, make sure that you've got layers because you don't know whether you're going to be hot or cold.
Yeah.
They've got make sure you take extra long charging cables for your phone because the last thing you want is for your phone or your devices to and you don't know if you're going to be stuck in bed or if you're going to be mobile or not, depending on what's in your arm at the time or whatever it might be. So it's those little practical tips and those little assurances.
I remember Rachel going, snacks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then afterwards feeling that she'd misjudged her snacks. But I'm thinking, at least you tried, and did it. But, somebody else had told her.
Yeah.
But it's all these little things. And then, what really makes me light up is I'll just get a note. 3 months later, I got a note from somebody who was corresponding with me separately because I said, I'll try and find out something about stem cells in Ireland because Ireland have a protocol to send people here to the UK. And it had just changed. And unfortunately, I emailed a consultant that I know. You may have met him before as well. And he said, oh, this is my colleague. And then a person I'd never spoken to before said, this is the protocol. This is how it works in Ireland. This is the person. And I could just feed back to this patient in Ireland on email and just say, this is how it works there. And then 3 months later, it's just like, wow, you're fantastic. You've changed my life. And I'm thinking, let's go easy on this. But it's just for them, they suddenly got where they needed to be. And it's shining the light through information and knowledge of how it works, and not doing anything per se other than navigating or helping them navigate.
Yeah. It's a world.
Complex world.
Yeah, it's a complex world. It's also a world of you don't know what you don't know in a lot of cases, isn't it? Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely right. But it's like anything. I mean, you used to work in F1. It's if I turned up in an F1 factory, I'd just be going, who, what, when, where, and how.
Yeah. So if we shift this round a little bit and say, how do you get help with your own performance? So you've got this performance of helping others with the information that you share. How do you, get the help and support to know that you're doing your best? Where do you go to? Who do you turn to?
That's a good question because there's sort of a small group of friends who also, they'll check you if they go, you're being an arse about something. I mean, that's one thing. And that's the sort of feedback thinking, I don't want to go down that route.
Yeah.
It's difficult in some ways because I'm operating entirely on my own, essentially. What you don't see is I'm sitting in the spare room. If I turn the camera around, you'd see the bed.
Right.
With all my clothes ready to pack for Canada. But if that's one thing I could change, Paul, that would probably be to have a more, I can feel asking you for help coming on.
No, I mean that's the
but seriously, you're making me think, and actually, it's really tough. And then people go, "Oh, well, you know all this stuff," and you're thinking, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and I sometimes feel like the one-eyed man.
Right.
Yet, to me, I see people. You always look above you, don't you?
Yeah.
You're not looking below. I was speaking to an ex-F1 engineer who runs a YouTube channel, sort of saying, getting the most out of it.
Yeah. No, and it is the reason I ask that in this podcast series is people who are helping others perform in whatever way, shape, or form that might be, need to sharpen their own saw and they need to work on their own game as much as anything and eat their own dog food or whatever it is you want to drink your own champagne.
Now that question out of everything was the one that really calls me to.
Well,
no, but I mean, everything else is like happy. Answer those before, But you're thinking, tricky.
Ah, good. So maybe we can follow up this with a conversation, see if we can further support, and if there's any people out there listening who believe they can support Dom in any way, then do reach out on that front.
I'd be delighted.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing? We don't get on. Fine.
Exactly. Yeah. And those sort of things can be anything from the technical side of things like running a YouTube channel. How do you get the best out of that? Through to the more sort of emotional or even the business side of it. How do you set up your finances to make this work for you, or how do you make this work in your life with all the travel that you're doing or the family that you've got in front of you as well. So there's loads of different ways in which you can seek support and get that further information.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'll tell you what I don't have. I'll be quite honest. I don't really have a clear plan
Right.
for this sort of grew organically. You don't know how it's going to go when you start, and then you get caught in the almost the hamster wheel of certainly with YouTube, producing content, doing this. I've been working hard on writing another article because I write for an MS research blog,
Yeah.
as well, reasonably frequently. But yeah, it's made harder by not having a complete absolute. That's where I'm heading.
Right.
Whether it's in a month, in 6 months, in a year's time. I knew I wanted to get 1,000 subscribers, and I knocked that out of the park. But yeah.
Yeah, but you can always do with more, right?
Well, yeah, and watch time and all those kind
Yeah.
of things. But subscribers aren't everything. It's a bit like it's like somebody saying I have 1,000 followers on Instagram. It's like, yeah, but how many of them are your friends? When they say I have 1,000 friends, it's like, no, you have 1,000 followers. That's different.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so couple of quick, shorter questions on this then. If you could help any individual team or organisation with the skill set that you've got and the knowledge that you've got, and this doesn't have to be about the MS side, it can be either, who would you want that to be?
I thought about this because you told me ahead of time roughly what you were going to ask. And there's a difference between me wanting somebody to do something the way that I think it ought to be done, which is I can look at certain things. I for example, some of these sort of other more, the bigger organizations feeding into this whole MS thing. But to use my, should we say, skills and experience, I tell you what, I always get a kick out of when I have a 20-year-old daughter, and she's got my disease, which is I can tell her nothing because there's nothing that she doesn't know. And when I was 20, I was exactly like that. So I'm being given my own form of reminder, shall we say?
Yeah.
But the times when I can share something with her that enables her to, should we say, get a jump, get ahead,
Right.
clarity, that's really, really pleasing, because part of the pleasing is them acknowledging that you're not a complete waste of boomer space or whatever it is. But the other thing is thinking, I've helped you. Maybe you'll share it with one of your friends, I don't know. But if I can impart a piece of, I don't know if wisdom is overdoing it, but something that has enabled you to navigate your way through.
Oh, brilliant. Nice, I love that. And flipping that on its head a little bit, if you were able to sit down and have a whiskey, I know you're a whiskey man, if you were able to sit down and have a little whiskey with someone that you could learn from and could help you with your own performance, who would you want that to be?
Don't want this to go to your head, but I would be quite thrilled to spend some time with you. Focus. I mean, there's the chatting crap as mates kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there is also when somebody has sort of a skills like you do, where you've done this sort of thing, and then just accent, because it's not so much hard truths, I think, but somebody, I'm all over the place all the time. For somebody to help sort of, shall we say, grip it and give it structure. Oh yes, please.
Brilliant. Well, let's carry on that conversation off the back of this then. Let's do that.
Thank you. Yeah.
And in terms of people finding out more, where do people find more information on the MS Guide? How can they reach out? What should they reach out with?
Okay. I'm trying to work out which hand to put up because I always get it back.
That one.
themsguide.com.
Yeah.
I'm trying to subtly do it by having a stretch, and I realized I couldn't get away with it. So themsguide.com is where everything goes. And I do communicate with people too. I try to make a point to answer every comment, providing it's not some screamingly, how should I put this politely, out there remark that really has very little relevance, and somebody wants to get their point across for something that's whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how you get in touch. The email and everything, any of the videos has all my contact details in.
Yeah.
I don't hide behind stuff. I'm putting myself out there.
Nice. And I know, that you've got the YouTube channel, and also you're also active on Twitter, and do you use LinkedIn, those sort of areas as well? Or...
LinkedIn, the nice thing is, I got a name, the MS Guide, because actually it's them's guide.
Right.
I just kept like, and also I thought I've got at the MS Guide on Instagram, I've got at the MS Guide on Twitter, I've got at the MS Guide as a domain name. Well, I got the MS Guide as a domain name.
Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn. There's an MS Guide page. There's also me, Dominic Shadbolt.
Yeah.
So and Shadbolt, because it does not trip off the tongue. But if you want, on Twitter,
Yeah.
I mean on LinkedIn, fine. That's the hardest thing as well, is all the blinking social media channels.
Well, I'll make sure that all of those links are available, and I think it's one of those where, from a personal side as well, it's not just people who have MS. People who have MS, this is an amazing set of resources to give you that patient side of things and to understand lots of different ways. Maybe it's an area that you haven't even thought of yet, or if it's something that's going to help you get ahead of the game. But it's also, if you're just interested, if you're impacted by MS, you've got people in your family, you've got friends who are out there, and you just want to find out a bit more. An absolutely fantastic resource that isn't the stuff that you just get from the NHS or from the facts and figures. This is definitely the personal side. Yeah.
So the thing that one of the things that surprised me the most and slightly disappointed me is, I thought people, because I urge people to get in touch if there's something you want discussed, if there's something you feel we're not covering adequately or whatever, and it happened about twice in 18 months, and but yeah, so it's trying to respond. I mean, there's no point me telling you what I think you need to hear. It's me telling you, or me facilitating the information that you need to hear.
Yeah. So if there are any of those topics out there, I'd actively encourage people get in touch with Dom, and that will help create content that's really useful for people and really make a difference. You're doing some great work, Dom. You've been a big help to me and the family throughout this whole thing. The MS Guide has been out there to really help us through a difficult part of our lives. So massive thanks for being on the show today, Dom.
It was a pleasure, and it's reciprocal. You helped me as well.
Yeah. Cheers, Dom.
Right,
Speak to you soon.
Paul.
Bye now.
You bet.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, then please give the podcast a rate, review and share. I'm Paul Teasdale, and from sausage making to banking, oil and gas to Formula One, I help people perform. If you'd like to find out more and have a conversation, contact me via helpingpeopleperform.com.